Ridge Runner Nation. Tonight, we are so excited to have the winners of last week's Super Bowl 50K Trail Championships on, David Riddle and Sarah Biehl. Some way, somehow, Wesley's predictions were actually correct for potentially, I think, the first time ever in his entire life. I mean, based on his earlier prediction videos, I don't think this guy could have even guessed when snow days were coming as a kid. And he lived in Burton, so they got plenty of snow up there. But anyways, here we are. We are so stoked to have them on tonight to talk about their races and everything that went down at Worcester Memorial Park. Sarah, David, how are y'all doing tonight?
Good.
Doing great.
That's great to hear. As always, I'm Cam Wrench. I'll be hosting tonight with the lovely and red-bearded John Dolovacki III. JD, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well this evening. I am just chilling over here at the house. Had a good exercise routine in today, and I'm excited to be on the show to talk to these two fantastic and really fast runners, something that I will probably never be, but it's great. Sarah, what are you drinking this evening?
A Mystic Mama, of course.
I believe that's what you had last time you were on the show too.
Probably.
How about you, David? What do you have over there?
I've got a little whiskey here, some bourbon whiskey. I've got a Henry McKenna single barrel 10-year bottled and bond whiskey. So.
Nice. I am drinking some Great Lakes beer. I got a Dortmunder, something a little light and refreshing for the evening because it's kind of almost getting close to spring, and as Wesley was saying earlier, the best holiday, probably the most underrated holiday of the year, is coming up this weekend where the clocks change. So I'm very excited about getting some more light later into the evening. Kim, what are you drinking?
I have a Wolf's Ridge Brewing Heartlandia, and once again, this lovely Nick Cozy that my friend Alex Dyer made for me. If you would like one of your own, at goosebelly_grandpa on Instagram, just hit him up. He's a great guy, and this is just such a cute addition to all of my beers. But anyways, with all that said, we're going to go ahead and just hop right in. Starting with Sarah, kind of take us through your race on last Saturday at Worcester Memorial Park. What was your thought process like going into the race? How did the morning of go? What was the biggest surprise for you on the course? Things like that.
Well, starting with before the race, I drove up the morning of. So it was definitely an early wake up, and an hour and a half drive. And then got to the race about an hour early and just kind of hung out. And then going into the race, I just kind of want to feel out the first loop. I ended up going a little faster than probably I'd originally planned. But with that being said, I guess I didn't have like a major plan because this was my first like full, completely on the trail race. So I was just kind of trying to feel that side of things out in general. Definitely, I knew that there were creek crossings, but not to that extent. I thought it was just like maybe step on a rock and get it over like the little creek, but I did not realize that I was going to have to just completely go in the water, which I realized very, very, very quickly that creek crossings are not my jam. Don't like wet feet. So that definitely was probably my least favorite part and the biggest surprise. But just trying to, stay consistent throughout the loops. I guess the first couple loops, I was really afraid of bonking. So I just wanted to make sure that I was getting enough nutrition at the where each loop started, which I probably still didn't get enough, but I didn't really have any issues with bonking. And then the last loop, I still felt pretty good up until the last couple miles, but the whole loop in general was definitely slower, but it was a lot muddier. I think the last loop around, because everyone had ran on it a bunch of times. But I mean, honestly, overall, I felt super good and I had a really good time for my first official trail race. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's coming after your run at the JFK 50 in the fall, and also coming after the Olympic Trials Qualifier Marathon, for those of you who don't know. I don't actually remember which episode of Ridge Runners Live Sarah was on previously. That was about a year ago because I wasn't even a part of the show yet then. So
Yeah.
I had no involvement in that process, but we're stoked to have you back on, and I'm
Oh
stoked to
yeah.
be a part of it this time.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
A lot has
And
changed in a year, that's for sure.
yeah. And so with that said, you ended up taking third overall at this race, including beating your coach, Michael Owen, who just finished fourth. How does it feel to like beat your coach in an event? You know, we know Mo's been dealing with some injury stuff, but did you have a moment there when you saw him cross the finish line? Like, hey, am I the captain now? What's going on here?
Well, as Wes had said in his predictions, or I guess kind of framed him, the LeBron James, definitely felt like, beating LeBron James at a dunking contest. So it was fun, but at the same time, he's not in his normal shape. So, it is what it is. But it was just a fun time. We ran together for a little bit on the second part of the last little part of the loop, for a little while, and just kind of talked a little bit about how we were feeling, which was really cool. It was just fun to be in the same race as my coach too. So it was fun overall.
Yeah, all right. I had that one like locked and loaded going in tonight because I knew I wanted to get kind of a shot at Mo because I always like taking those. I'm sure I'll get a
The
text later
LeBron
about
James.
it. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so you said this was your first ever sort of fully on trail race. JFK, for those who don't know, it finishes on a towpath and then road, some like hilly paved country roads. What did you do anything different training leading into this race because it was all going to be single track? Did you do any recon at Worcester Memorial Park, or what else did you have going on?
Um, Nothing was really different, I guess. I mean, I've upped my mileage a little bit, but nothing's changed, I guess, trail wise. I was planning on going the week before, but I had some things pop up, so I wasn't able to drive up to Worcester the week before. So I was kind of going into it a little blind, but it worked.
Yeah. All right. And so we talked in our pre-show episode about the online race coverage that Brian Poland was going to be doing. What did it feel like having those people out on course at like the various spots? Did you pay attention to that at all? Was anybody at home following along with that kind of stuff?
I guess I wasn't really paying attention throughout the race. I'm not sure if anyone was following along, just kind of checking in after the race to see how it went. But I don't think anyone was following at the time.
How about you, David? Was that same kind of feeling there with the media coverage, or was that any different for you?
Yeah, I saw the camera out there and I knew there was going to be some coverage, but you get into race mode and you're just totally focused on what you've got to do, focused on your competitors and your nutrition and everything. And so I just kind of tune that out and I don't think about it honestly during the race. So it's great that it's there. I don't really know. I didn't really hear about anyone following along specifically, but I just was out there doing my thing and I noticed the DJ and the coverage at the end and all the interviews and the video, and I obviously saw the traffic on Facebook. But as far as during the race, it doesn't make a lot of difference to me. It just too focused on what I'm trying to do out there.
Now, if we jump back further into the beginning of your race, you're further away from you could have driven up in the morning up, but that's probably not what you did, I imagine, right?
Yeah, I'm about 3 hours away. So I reconned as best I could on Strava, did a little bit of research, and then Friday I drove up during the day, checked in a hotel, and then went out to the course, and I did like a 3 mile loop on the last section of the course to get a feel for it. And I think that really gave me a pretty good idea of what I needed to do to get started. And so then I was able to kind of pace myself in the first loop and feel like it really set me up well.
Yeah. And so, David, going into this race, right, we've already had a lot of talk about Michael Owen, but the field itself was not exactly thin with just him at the front for the men's field. Gabe Rainwater being there, Arlen Glick as well, Travis Zipfel. Did you give any thought to what the competition was going to be like before heading into this race?
You know, um, I grew up in Alabama, and all I've lived in Cincinnati for 10 years now, but still my running social circle is still based in the South, and I go race in the South a lot, but I haven't raced north of Cincinnati. I think I've done Mohican twice, at least started twice, but I just haven't fully gotten ingrained in kind of the more northern Ohio racing scene. So a lot of these names weren't familiar to me. I'd looked at some of the results, but I didn't know exactly who was going to be there until the start list got put out. And I did try to kind of see who was in the 8 o'clock start group. But still, I looked up the ultra sign up ratings and kind of got a feel for it, but it didn't tell me a whole lot. And actually, Wes's predictions were the most helpful thing I got, but I still didn't really know how to put a name to a face at the time. So a lot of it was just going out there running my race and see if I could figure out who was there as we went. But I had raced Travis before. I'm familiar with Michael Owen, but Gabe and Jacob, I didn't know at all.
Yeah. Okay. And so heading into this race, David, were you targeting this sort of like as an A race? Were you looking to get, like a really stout performance here? Or was this kind of building towards something bigger later in the year?
So I would say my A race was back in late January, Mountain Mist 50K in Huntsville, Alabama. It's I've run it 10 times now and won it 9, and I consider it kind of my hometown 50K race. So I do it every year. And this was kind of like, I came out of Mountain Mist, thought I'm still in pretty good shape. I'd like to run another trail race this winter. Let's just hop in this one kind of late notice. Unfortunately, I rolled my ankle running on the roads at night 3 or 4 weeks ago. So I almost didn't make it to the start line, and I wasn't quite as sharp as I had hoped. I had pretty good fitness coming out of Mountain Mist, and I knew that. But after the ankle roll injury and just kind of coming down a couple weeks from Mist, I definitely not in peak shape, and I wasn't totally tuned for this course. But I knew I was strong just based on my the winter of training. So we'll call it a B race.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about you, Sarah? We know that you're being coached by Mo, but what did he sort of think going into this race, and how are you sort of approaching it?
Kind of as a B race. I'm doing Promised Land in a little over a month. So that's more of an A race. So this was kind of, we just trained through, took the week leading up to it a little bit easier, but I still had a workout and somewhat normal mileage, just backed off a little bit, but no tapering type of stuff.
Mhm. All right. And so going into this race as like a B race, and as you said, you both kind of started pretty patiently, you were trying to feel things out. Tell me, how does that differ towards the end of the race? Are you looking still to fully empty the tank when you finish? You're going to be totally spent, or are you pulling back? Are you actively trying to slow down there towards the end? As someone who doesn't have that elite kind of speed, that's something I've like never truly experienced. The end of any 50K, really, I'm feeling pretty worked. And David, if you want to start with this one.
Yeah. So the first loop, I always try to make on a 50K. So this was a 4 loop 50K. First loop, the first quarter of the race, I try to make feel pretty easy, and it did feel quite easy. Somehow, no matter how hard I try, the last loop or the last quarter of the race is always hard. No matter how far I'm ahead, no matter how easy I'm supposed to race, if there's a timer and a crowd and people running the race with me, I'm gonna go hard. So yeah, I didn't take it out hard, but I still finished pretty hard, and it's just really hard to turn that competitiveness off.
Yeah.
Easy. I also love that it's like this was your guys' B races. You both won them. Oh, that cracks me up so much. Sarah, what were you going to say for that question?
Well, I was just gonna I agree. It's kind of hard. I feel like when you do get in that competitive mindset to just ease up a little bit. I definitely felt in the last loop like I felt pretty good. So maybe I had a little bit more in me that I could have pushed, going throughout the race, but definitely pretty tired the last couple miles. But it's hard just to turn it down a little bit in any type of race, no matter if it's an A race or a B race.
Especially when you're catching your coach.
Yeah, that's a little bit more motivation.
At that point, you'd passed them, right? Just left them in the dust.
I wouldn't say that, but
Close enough.
I mean, I think it was a couple miles into the last loop that I passed, or I ran with him for a little bit, and then kind of as we were making another climb, we parted ways.
Nice. I just want to remind everyone who's in the chat, drop any questions in there. We'll make sure we get them off to Sarah and David. If you like what we're doing and enjoying this episode, please go ahead and give us a subscribe and like along the way. We greatly appreciate all the help and support from everyone who's watching. I want to dive into nutrition. I always love discussions around nutrition and how people fuel. So what was your nutrition plan for the day? What did you start with? Like, what was your kind of pre-race idea? And then what did you do during the race to keep yourself fueled? It's a short race, so it may not be as much as you would for like a, ultra, but what were you guys doing on that? Sarah, you want to go first?
Yeah, so I had some spring energy. Like prior to the race, my plan was spring energy. I had some Gatorade, some Pepsi, of course, and then some Cliff. I think they were Cliff Chews. But it ended up where I just had, I'd say maybe one of the spring energy, and I try to space it out through like an entire loop, just because if I have too much at once, I almost throw it back up. So I kind of had to space that out. And then I had Tailwind as well. Always Tailwind. So I had Tailwind. I took my handheld on the first loop and then the third loop. And then I think I had maybe one of the chews. So I definitely didn't have as much nutrition as I should have. But the little that I had seemed to work throughout. But yeah.
What about you, David?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think you want to take nutrition advice from me. I'll tell you what I did, but it seems as I get older, I get worse at the nutrition side of things. So, let's see. Starting in the morning, all I had for breakfast was a ginger ale and a granola bar. That's about all I can convince myself to eat on race morning. Started the race with Pedialyte in my bottle, actually. Doesn't have a lot of calories, but it's got a lot of salt in it. And I think it tastes pretty good. You can pick it up at the drugstore. So it's pretty easy to find. You don't have to order it like some of the specialty running stuff. So I've been using Pedialyte lately. So it was pretty cold to start. So I didn't drink much the first loop. So I went into the second loop with the same bottle of Pedialyte that I had drank about half of. And I too had a spring energy gel, which gels haven't been working well for me at all the last few years, but spring energy seems to have something going that, just tastes a little more like real food than the typical goo gels. So I had to kind of coax it down a little bit, but it wasn't too bad. So that worked pretty well. I was proud of myself for getting a gel down, start a loop 2. It didn't take me the whole loop, maybe a mile, but so that was pretty good. And then loop 3, I picked up a water and I had a chocolate goo gel. To get 2 gels down, that's like a PR nutrition day for me. And then the third loop, I just did a quick refill. I had a bottle of Gatorade and just put it in my handheld and took off to keep moving. And that's what I survived the last loop on.
Okay, definitely different approaches than what I would do personally. Sarah, I'm really intrigued though. You mentioned having like your bottles and nutrition on laps 1 and 3. On then 2 and 4, were you carrying in nothing with you while you ran, or did you have a bottle and you just didn't drink from it or something like that?
I just didn't carry anything. I just kind of left it at the little start area of the other loop. And I don't know if it was just I just didn't want to have anything in my hands on those loops. So I didn't plan that either. I just kind of first loop, I was kind of over it. And then I'm like, it's on the third loop, I'm like, okay, I should probably take it again. So not really planned, but it worked.
Yeah, I'll say that there are times when you just don't want to hold anything in your hand and it gets you get tired of it. So I actually wear a vest, and while I haven't had good luck with carrying the collapsible bladders on me or anything like that, I found that I can put my bottle in the backpack part and it
Ooh.
sits there pretty good. And so I can have it with me and put it away for climbs if I want to hike or anything like that. So that's like a little pro tip I use. Throw it in there like it's a quiver back there in the back, and it sits pretty good.
I'll have to try that for sure. Thanks.
Yeah, and I've tried those. They make those bottles that you're supposed to tuck into the waistband of your shorts, and they just apparently do not work for people who are shaped like I am, because I ejected that one day at High Banks Metro Park, and I have yet to see it since. So
yeah, are those the simple bottles, simple hydration?
Yeah, I believe that's the brand. It's got kind of the hook on it. It's just it was not.
I actually like those. It probably would have worked really well in this race with about an hour loop being cold. It just doesn't quite hold enough if it's a warmer day and you're an hour between aid stations. But it's a pretty innovative idea. I have a couple of those.
I have to look into those. I've never seen the side holstered ones. I just always use the like ultimate direction or whatever, like the collapsible ones on top. I guess from day one I've been doing that, so it's not too much for me, but I'm also not running at an elite level where I need to consider how much weight and everything else I carry, but that's that. Let's see, David will be back in a few minutes probably. We have one, let's see here. Naked belt soft. Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is. I feel like I would drop it. It would just disappear. It would bounce out or something.
Oh.
Huh.
So it kind of contours to your back if you're shaped like me. I don't know about Cam. He must be shaped weird back there, but
definitely don't have the average runner's build. Wesley likes to hype up my my former football days, and I'm not that shape anymore, and I was never that good. But
he does love bringing that up almost every episode. It's the two of you. Speaking of Wesley, he said he was actually watching the whole day, following along. So there was at least one person watching all of the Super Bowl coverage. And I think, David, you just made Wesley's year in the fact that you said his prediction video was useful and helpful to you. He is going to just run with that. So, like, we're never going to hear the end of it. Like, he's going to be very, very happy about that. We do have a first question from Brianna Reese, or Brianna Brown. Don't tell Reese that, her name still says Tudor apparently in the chat. But she wants to know what races are on your 2021 calendars.
So I have Promised Land, but then Leadville, I'm on the waiting list right now. And then after that, I'm not really sure.
When do they do the lottery for that one?
Or
what, you're on the waiting list. I'm sorry, not the lottery. They already pulled it. Wow. Yeah. Zing. I went over my head real fast. How far down are you on that list?
I think it was like in the 20s. So
you're a good shot
maybe,
then.
Hopefully.
That would be exciting. Do you have any experience at that altitude, or what would you do for training for that?
I don't really know. Haven't got that far yet, but that's a really good question.
Fair enough.
No experience at all, but I'm just kind of new to everything and winging it a little bit, sort of.
And what about you, David? You said that Mountain Mist was your A race, and this was kind of a B race for you. Do you got bigger things planned for the summer or fall?
I don't have a lot planned. I was in Boston Marathon last year. I've never run Boston, and I've wanted to run it for a while, and obviously it got canceled last year. And so I'm waiting to see if it's going to happen this fall. I'd like to do that if possible. I did recently register for JFK. So I will planning to go back to JFK for the first time in about, I guess it'll be 9 years now since I've been. So that's all I got on the calendar. I keep a pretty chill racing schedule nowadays with 2 kids and busy, work-life balance otherwise. So I kind of take what I can get and don't plan too far in advance usually. So, if I've already registered for JFK, I've been thinking about it already. So I guess that's going to be my fall race, a race.
And David, quick question. Do you have a coach or are you self-coached?
I'm self-coached.
Okay, I thought so. I just wanted to confirm before I asked this follow-up that I had. When you're running at an elite level like you two are, do you always kind of feel like you can just hop in a race last minute and you've got like a good store of your fitness or like a sense of your fitness when you're like, you know what, I'm ready to race. I can just hop in this one and 1-2 weeks out you'll start to taper and then you'll be good? Or does it take sort of more thought than that?
I feel like for an A race at least, it kind of takes more preparation and tapering. But training wise, to jump into kind of a random race, sometimes it's just nice. You don't really have to taper too much, maybe like the day or two before. Depending on where you are at in training and if you've had some consistent training. But for me in the past, I've been able to just um, kind of hop into things last minute, and it's went okay for the most part, as long as it's not like a bigger race.
I'll say it really just depends. It depends on what you want to do. And an A race is only an A race because you expect yourself to perform at the absolute maximum of your ability. In a B race, you're willing to maybe not be quite as good as you could be if you were completely tapered and fully sharpened and completely healthy. So you just have to be realistic going in and know that it's if you're not tapered or if you're in the middle of a training cycle, that you're just not going to be 100%. Yeah, now your 98% may be good enough to still win a lot of races, but you just have to be realistic with yourself and make sure it's part of the plan and you take that into consideration.
Yeah, definitely. And then I assume there's a difference between being coached and uncoached there. Sarah, are you ever thinking or just like texting Mo late at night and being like, "Hey, there's a race this Saturday. Can I hop in this, or is that not okay?"
So I haven't yet. It's mainly just, well, I guess since there's not been a lot of races, that hasn't been as much of an option. But maybe eventually.
Yeah. All right. Well, and then to kind of circle back to Super Bowl, one thing that we haven't asked yet is we heard a lot about Worcester Memorial Park from Brian Poland on our preview show with him, and he really loves the place. What was each of your favorite parts of the course, or sort of like your favorite thing from the day that happened? David, if you want to lead this one off.
Yeah, I think just the weather was, I mean, it was 20 degrees when we started, but the sky was absolutely crystal clear blue. So that was incredible. But just the surprising amount of terrain and variation there. I just don't think of Northern Ohio as being that diverse and as far as terrain goes. But this Worcester Memorial Park is just this pocket of I don't know. It's just incredible the amount of terrain variation. It's got cliffs. It's got creek crossings. Um, it's just really pretty, and that was the most surprising thing, is to find this kind of hidden gem up there in the cornfields of Northern Ohio.
It is like in the middle, I think. But I mean, you start to get up more towards like Mohican and then the valley, so you get that terrain differentiating. Like versus like if you went out towards Toledo, then it would be like the flattest of flatlands.
Yeah, I mean, I've run Mohican, so I know it's there, and we've got hills in Cincinnati. I don't really know what I expected, but the climbs in that park are just they're only about 200 feet max, but they're just straight up and straight down. It was really surprising to find that there.
You feel the same way, Sarah, about that, or were you surprised
Yeah,
about the course?
I was definitely surprised. I guess I'd never been to Worcester before, but just that was there. just even an hour and a half away. Actually, after the race, I was so impressed and kind of just shocked about that being just randomly in Worcester. I was telling one of my friends, and I think she's planning like a trip there to do some trail running because it was just so nice.
Nice.
And really good trails, like good conditions.
It's good to hear. I've not run out there yet. I know Brian has hollered at me quite a few times to see if, because I go to it for work a lot. He's like, you should just come by and run. And I'm like, but I want to go home. So, but I'll have to go down to that park too and check it out since I'm typically there like once a week.
Yeah, it's worth it.
It's good to hear. If we jump back, I kind of want to go like way back, like before Super Bowl. Like I want to know like more about the two of you individually and the two of you individually as runners and what kind of got you to where you are today. Sarah, I think we've done this a little bit on the last episode, but I think there's a lot of new viewers and definitely different viewers tonight that may not know that story. And David, obviously you're new to the show, so we don't know anything about you besides a Super Bowl championship winner. So, David, you want to go first and kind of talk about like where you started in running and what kind of got you into the trail and ultra scene and stuff like that?
Sure. I started running probably fourth grade, doing the mile run at school and showing some promise. And I jumped in a 5K with my dad, probably when about fourth grade, and he thought he was going to hang back and run with me, and I smoked him. And then, running in seventh and eighth grade, cross country and track, ran in high school. Ended up going to college, walking on at Auburn University, running track and cross country at Auburn. I wasn't recruited in high school. I never had a scholarship for running in college. I was pretty middle of the pack on a kind of a low end SEC team. So I wasn't really that good in college. But after college, I started training for a marathon. I was trying to hit the Olympic trial standard for a few years and ended up running 226 when the standard was 222 at the time. And then they dropped it to 219, and that kind of put it out of my reach. So at the time, I was living in Huntsville, Alabama, and had the Mountain Mist 50K was there, and names like Dink Taylor and Rob Youngren, Dwayne Satterfield, who were like 80s and 90s legends in the sport, were there and just sucked me into the trail and ultra scene. And I started having success racing and just got hooked on it. And so that's kind of how I got into it. I've been a runner for almost 30 years now. Just continue to love it and enjoy the process. And the trail and ultra scene has been good to me. So still doing it.
Awesome. Sarah, what about you?
So I got started with track first my freshman year of high school. I did a bunch of different sports, and I started out with track thinking I was gonna be a sprinter, so that quickly changed. And then started running cross country when I was a sophomore in high school, and I went to a small D3 school in Ohio, and kind of had some success with high school running. And I got recruited to go to Shawnee, which is an NAIA school in Portsmouth, Ohio. And just my running career kind of took off whenever I got there. And the Shawnee State Forest is right there as well. So we would go out there a couple times a week or a couple times a month and run a loop called Hangover. And so that's kind of how I got introduced into the forest and running like that. And then after college, I had started out with some road running. I ran the Columbus half and then decided the next year to do the full and try to qualify for the Olympic trials. And in 2018 at the Columbus Marathon, I qualified for the Olympic trials, just about 35 seconds under the standard. So barely, but I qualified. And so around this time last year is when I ran the Olympic trials before the world shut down basically. So we were kind of lucky that we got to run it before all of that happened. And then over the past year with the pandemic and a lot of the races getting canceled, I've just tried different things. Like I ran the North Loop and the South Loop at Shawnee 2 separate times, and kind of had some fun with that. And then I did the Columbus Running Company Find Your Limit Challenge over the summer as well, and had a lot of fun running all day, and just hitting I think it was 61 miles that day. So with like a combination of all of that, and Mike trying to convince me for the past couple of years to do ultras, I decided to do JFK, and then had a lot of fun with it, and I guess here I am now.
Yeah, and
So it's been a transition.
yeah, and you're part of that like interesting group trend that's happening, especially since the start of the pandemic, when there's been a lot of track and field runners or marathoners, runners who are turning to trails and trail races and longer distance run. And it's interesting to bring. I think it's adding, a lot more competitiveness to the overall ultra running community and field. Even now in Ohio, we've got huge depths at most of these races for competition and stuff like that. So I think it's been a fun trend to watch, and it's interesting to see people that we know who are part of this come on the show and talk to us and hear their perspective about how they got there and to do that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
it's always good to hear. I think people, once they get that ultra bug, it's there.
I know I had so much fun at JFK. Like it definitely hurt, but just the amount of fun that I had running that long, and I had convinced myself before that I was gonna kind of hate it, but I had a great time at JFK, so kind of just running with that.
Love it.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And so one thing I've been thinking about with both of y'all's backgrounds coming from that fast road marathoner sort of like part of the sport, what was the biggest difference or transition for y'all when going from that sub elite like road scene to this like elite trail ultra marathon runner? David, if you want to take this one first.
What was the hardest thing about it? I don't really think marathoning is harder to me than trail ultras. Trail ultras just came naturally to me, and maybe it's because the level of competitiveness is not there, or maybe the trial standard was just too much for me. So I was putting a lot of pressure on me on the roads, but for whatever reason, the trail running came naturally to me. I think, however my body works, my natural physiology, I'm just more comfortable at a little bit slower pace, but I can run it for a really long time. And obviously that is conducive to trail ultras.
Yeah. And what about you, Sarah?
So I definitely still love the road and love being on the trails too. And I feel like for me, they're difficult and different ways. I feel like on the road, the terrain's so much easier, mostly flat, but I feel like 26 miles feels like 26 miles. But going to the trail, even running the 50K, I feel like that didn't feel as long as a road marathon felt. I think maybe just like I'm more distracted by the trails and kind of paying attention to, where I'm going. I'm going up and down and jumping over things. And so I'm more distracted. And the miles kind of, I don't want to say go by quicker, but mentally it's not as challenging as a road marathon. They're just different in different ways, but I noticed that even the past weekend, the 50K didn't feel as long as a road marathon, and that does not make any sense, but for some reason it did.
It's true. We had Gabe Raynor and Jake Conrad on after their Bigs performance this year, and they talked about how like a 100-mile and that 200 miles they did at Biggs, their recovery time was significantly faster than if they were to do a regular road marathon. And it's just like they feel like they can go back out the next day, and it just that terrain, like you said, talking about like 26 on a road feels like 26 versus
Yes.
20 or 50K on the trail is like, it's not, it doesn't feel the same.
Yeah.
So we do have a question in the chat from Wesley Harden asking, this is for David. It says, what advice would you give a rising ultra running superstar like Sarah?
I mean, she was only 15 minutes behind me at this race. I haven't seen a female that close to me in a 50K in a long time. So I don't know if I have any advice to give her. She's got a good coach. She's doing everything right, apparently. I would say specificity in your training is the key to success. Yeah, I think she's got a lot to wring out at JFK based on how close she was to me at the 50K and what I've done at JFK before. She can go a lot faster there. So training for that specifically, if she wants to do that again, would be really interesting. So work with your coach and look at how you train for that trail section to start with, and then transition into the towpath and how you finish the rolling road section. That's I think a big secret to my success is training specificity and just knowing what the course I'm going to be running is like and trying to match that in training leading up to it. That's a really big key. You can be a really fast road marathoner, but as soon as you get in a hilly trail ultra, it's just a different beast, and it'll show if you're not trained for it properly.
I appreciate that. And that's definitely, I feel like, an area I need to work on. Even whenever I did run JFK, I got lost somehow and added on a couple extra miles. So
that'll get you.
Yeah, knowing the course and kind of being able to even navigate a little bit better would help. But I appreciate that advice.
Mm-hmm. And so another question, right? Not for an ultra running superstar in the making like Sarah, but just for somebody like myself, that mid to the back of the pack person, is would either of you recommend going back down to that like road marathon in terms of distance and changing that focus in order to gain some sort of leg speed or some strength that a lot of ultra runners don't have, especially if they, like me, jumped right up to the trail races and the ultra distances?
Yes, absolutely. I would even tell you take it down to 5K. I ran last night, I ran 30-second hill repeats, like power strides up a hill to keep, because I felt weak at on the hills at the Super Bowl. So I try to still do one hard track workout, fartlek type effort every week. I used to do two track workouts in a long run is kind of the standard that I used to do. When I was training for the really long stuff like 50 milers and 100 milers, I would do back-to-back long runs on the weekend. But now, just with work responsibilities, stress, and family life, I'm back to one workout a week and one long run. But I absolutely encourage you to keep that leg speed. I think it's really critical in long-term success, even for longer races.
All right, I appreciate that. And what about you, Sarah? What do you think?
So I'm always a fan of going down in distance because I guess that's where I came from. So I'm still kind of trying to figure all of that out. But I feel like, it never hurts to work on some speed, and it can be kind of fun just to switch it up a little bit mentally too. Kind of focus on something else and see what you can do in it.
Yeah,
the caution there is don't overdo it. If you haven't done any track work or speed work or anything like that, don't just kill yourself. You've got to be controlled, because the risk is you can injure yourself if you're not used to it. So build into it, be smart about it, and don't overdo it. But definitely keeping that turnover and doing some higher intensity stuff will improve your leg speed and your fitness in general much more rapidly than just running easy all the time.
Yeah, I think that's awesome advice. I've done a couple of those like Tabata style runs that I found from
Yeah.
stuff like that, and that hurts, but it feel pretty good after that. So I'm not one for speed work normally, but it's something probably should add more often. So I think that's good advice. Um, I totally had a question I told Cam I was going to ask, but I totally just forgot it. Um, so I'm gonna have to pass it back to camera.
That's fine. No problem
Go
there,
on.
JD. And so, right, you both kind of have different perspectives. Obviously, David being uncoached and Sarah having a coach. We just had this debate on our Voss Talks show, but where do you guys stand on that, especially for a runner who's looking to see like truly what they're capable of to like kind of hit those limits? Do you think a coach is necessary, or even if necessarily like, excuse me, even if a coach isn't necessary to do that, you think you can get their self coach? Do you think that having a coach is just going to speed that process along? And Sarah, if you want to start this one.
Um, I guess it's not necessary for success. I think it depends on the person. For me, I know having a coach is very important for my success. Just so because I'm constantly, questioning if I'm doing too much, too little. So just having kind of that person to just guide me along. Um, but I feel like for some people, kind of having that coach, it's almost you'll uh sometimes it can get in your head. I feel like it just depends on the person, really. If that's going to be your biggest success. I just know for me it really does help, and having that structure, and kind of laying things out and having someone else to bounce ideas off of as well. So that it's a personal thing for me, I guess.
Yeah, I'll jump in and say I think it's beyond personal. It's the relationship. It's really that the two-way street between you and the coach. If that works, it's great. It works. And Sarah mentioned structure. Accountability is another thing that having a coach really does. If you skip a workout or you back off, you got to tell your coach, and that's bad. So, and on the flip side, if you want to go jump in a race and you shouldn't be, and you got to tell your coach, they're going to say, I don't think it's a good idea. So, just because I'm self-coached doesn't mean I don't think they're valuable. I do. It depends on the personal situation, and I've actually tossed around the idea of trying to find a coach again this year just to get a little different perspective. I think I have a pretty good system. I don't think there's any magic bullets in training. I think consistency and just kind of the system I have works well, but to have a little bit different perspective, especially as I get a little bit older, I'm thinking about reaching out to somebody and seeing if it works for me now. The hard part now is I've just got so many family commitments and things like that, work stuff that I can't always say I'm going to work out on Tuesday night. Sometimes it just has to fit. Sometimes I didn't sleep well. Sometimes I got to get up early for work, and sometimes I got to pick up the kids, and so that's really the flexibility and being able to listen to my body and make adjustments on the fly without having to ask a coach is one of the reasons I haven't had one for a while.
Interesting. Because I would second a couple of those things, especially the work flexibility and being adaptable to your schedule. Like sometimes priorities land where they land, and it would be tough, I think, to find a coach that would be an always on in terms of being responsive about a request to change something or to talk about something. So I can see the difficulty in that area.
I'll add to that a little bit, just because I kind of had over the past like month with the snow and everything. It has been nice because there was a couple times with the snow, and I did a few treadmill workouts, and there was a few times I had a text Mike and kind of switch things up a little bit. Just the weather would be better, this day or that day, or I do a lot of my workouts in the dark, and could I switch this from a Friday to a Saturday where I can do the in the light during the day, and watch out for ice and things like that. And he's been really flexible. And there was, a time that I texted him where I was kind of bummed to switch it again. And he said that the best training plans have flexibility, which really was great to hear. It's okay to be flexible, and having that relationship with the coach is key.
The yeah. If you guys haven't watched the Voss talks that we had, it would be interesting to go back and listen to us bicker about coaches for about an hour if you got time on a run. But we brought up some of these things went on. I like lean towards like David's side, I think, in terms of like, not that I don't but I like rather coach myself or whatever, go through that kind of stuff versus being on like having a coach. So that's a fun debate, and it's interesting to bring other people into that discussion because I think it's just a heated and lovely topic to talk about for running. Do you have another question in the chat from Turley Marshall that says, David, how gnarly is the Barkley 50K train compared to Southeast Ohio running?
It's pretty gnarly. The thing about Barkley is, to me, it's not a running race. It totally takes away my speed. My 2:26 marathon speed, totally irrelevant at Frozen Head Park. You hit the briars on Rat Jaw, and I'm no better than anyone else. I have no more speed because you just can't get through the briars alone. And so 50K, that's about a 10-hour race. So it runs like an 80K plus. 100K, something like that. It's just totally different. And the climbs are as steep as what we have in Ohio, but they're about 5 or 6 times as long. And they've got briars and everything else, and it's usually hot that time of year. So I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad I can check that box, but I don't really see myself going back there. It's just not my style of racing.
Yeah, and is to kind of add on to that, as someone who just went to Frozen Head last month for the very first time, you don't have context for that park until you've been there. And as somebody who's spent almost all of my life and done all of my outdoor adventuring in the Midwest and Appalachia, Frozen Head is incredibly unique. And there was actually a moment where I was running with Samuel Hartman and Steven. I don't know how to say his last name, so I'm not going to try. It's Ultra Trail Steven on YouTube. And we got to the fire tower and they were like, oh, look, here's Rat Jaw. And this is after, the biggest climbs of my life and some of the most like rapidly shifting weather patterns I'd ever seen. And I was like, oh, it only goes down like 200 feet. And they're like, no, that's the fog. Like, come back the next day and take this other trail up and you'll see where it starts. And I did. And it's among the biggest climbs of the day, straight through briars, all the way up, in some sections, literally like hands like on the ground, like having to pull yourself up. It's truly like nothing we have in Ohio, like Shawnee Forest included.
Fascinating. I'm gonna go down there at some point. I did remember my question for Sarah, finally. And it was regarding Olympic trials and road running, and if that was still a future goal for you. I think you're still young in the running world. So I was curious if that's like something you're going to do eventually, or you're going to do immediately when Olympic trials come back around, or what?
I definitely want to qualify for the next Olympic trials. I think it's 2 years out, I believe, that you can start to qualify again. So I want to juggle both. I definitely want to try to qualify again because that was a great experience. And definitely.
Awesome. So let's jump into our ending part of the show, the quick questions. Sarah, did we have those last time you were on? Do we have quick questions?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Nice. So I'm gonna let Cam take his favorite one because he runs this playlist and this is all him.
Okay, so this is the classic one. This is my second favorite one of these to ask everybody, and it's, if ultra running had walk-up songs like baseball, what would yours be? David, if you want to start with this one.
Oh man, you guys told me to think about this and I didn't. This looks really bad. Um, uh, the last time, let me think. The last time I raced, I got championed by Sia stuck in my head. So I'm gonna go with that. Is that you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely heard that song.
And what about you, Sarah?
So I've been really on a kick of throwing it back to the 2000s. So I think I'm gonna go with "Run It" by Chris Brown.
Hmm.
I think
All
it's Chris
right.
Brown.
Yeah. If not, we'll try to figure that out. Spotify has like all the music, I think. So, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, if Tanner Lee can put the entire Smokey and the Bandit soundtrack on that, I think you can get a couple if that's not by Chris Brown.
Yeah, it's something like that. I don't know. It's a throwback.
Hmm. And so, given our earlier discussion about nutrition, maybe the answer to this question is nothing, right? But what is one thing you guys can't leave an aid station without?
Tailwind for the most part. I guess I did leave without tailwind, but I'm gonna go with tailwind.
I can leave an aid station without anything. I told you nutrition's not my forte. So I always have grand plans to do this or eat this or take this. And once I get to the aid station and I'm in a race situation, I don't want to stop. I'm just going to keep going. So I'll leave. I'll leave everything at the aid station. Just run.
What about a post race meal? Favorite post race meal?
Post races, definitely go on feel. I usually like a Snickers bar or something like that afterward. But pre-race meal now, I tend to like Olive Garden, I'll admit.
What about you, Sarah?
Anything Mexican after a race, a very large burrito or a taco, and some good beer.
Hmm. All right. And David, do you have a particular Olive Garden order each pre-race meal, or do you mix it up?
So the key to my Olive Garden order is don't get the salad, get minestrone. So salad in my stomach the night before race just don't agree. So avoid the salad, get the minestrone, and then spaghetti or chicken parmesan or something like that. Whatever works.
All right. And do either of y'all have any pre-race rituals that you do every morning before the race?
No, not really.
I guess just listen to good music. I don't know.
Yeah. Mhm. Can you tell I come over from a ball sport that's a lot more ritualistic and ceremonial to running?
Yeah.
But yeah. And so this will be our final quick question of the night. If you could run with any one person in the history of the world, even if they aren't a runner, we're going to say that they're running with you and they're keeping your pace. You're going to have a nice conversational long run together. Who would it be and why?
There, you go first.
Me. Dang it. Oh, this is, I think, a very tough question because there's just so many people. Um, I don't know why this is someone that comes to mind for. I'm just gonna go with Bill Nye, the science guy, because I feel like there's a lot of questions that could be asked and good conversation. So
Fascinating.
Yeah, interesting
don't
answer.
know.
Mhm.
So just that is a very interesting answer. I never would have thought of Bill Nye the Science Guy, but
It just really came to me.
it would be like running with like Neil deGrasse Tyson, like just
I don't
interesting
know.
conversations.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What about you, David? Did you come up with an answer yet?
I don't know. I I don't really I'm not a huge fan of the sport, unfortunately. I enjoy it. I love it. So I'm not a huge, but I'm just not a huge fan of it. I don't, worship people and not a great fan of individuals. So that's kind of hard for me to say. I guess maybe it's kind of a cop out, but if my grandfather were still around, still here, I'd want to go for a run with him and see him again. So that's where I'm going to go with my grandfather.
And that's not a cop out. Like we've had so many
No.
people talk about running with people that they, that have passed away that they loved and they wanted to just have a conversation with again. And
Yeah.
so those are always hard.
All right, if we're going down that route, I'm going with Dwayne Satterfield. So Dwayne Satterfield passed away almost exactly a year ago, after a really short battle with cancer. He's a big Barkley runner. I don't think he was ever able to finish, but just a legend in the sport. So a lot of people in the Alabama running community really miss Dwayne. So that's definitely where I'd go in that route.
All right. Well, we appreciate you sharing that with us, David. That's a great answer. And so just to kind of wrap up things tonight, we want to thank you all so much for joining us tonight and sharing your stories about Super Bowl 50K and helping our listeners get to know you a little bit better. Do either of y'all have any sponsors you'd like to plug or anyone you'd like to say thank you to before we close out the show?
I mean, definitely Mike. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Mike.
All right.
Sounds like Sarah needs some sponsors, and Tailwind should be on the list somewhere. I think my sponsoring days are over, but I'll shout out to my family. Just thank them, thank my wife and my kids for letting me to continue to run at a high level in this sport and tolerating the crazy stuff I have to do to still run it at this level. So they have to put up with a lot. So thank you to my family.
All right. Well, with that, if there's no last minute questions from the last minute questions from the chat, John.
Wait, what? I'm like the John. Am I like the Don now of this? Like what? No, we don't have any more questions in the chat. I think we covered everything. Let's see here. Yeah, that's all pretty good with that aspect. Yeah. Thanks again, everyone, Ridge Runners, for tuning in this episode. We greatly appreciate everyone who watches the show. Like I said before, if you like and enjoy what we're doing, please hit a like, subscribe, share it with a friend. We greatly appreciate it. That's our best way of marketing. I want to thank David and Sarah for joining us this evening. You know, two fantastic runners in different areas too. You know, David, you're more experienced. You have a very established career. Sarah, you're coming up. You're going to be a huge superstar in the future. And this was a wonderful area to just discuss with both of you, especially with your Super Bowl wins, and congrats on both of those. Other than that, I think we're going to get out of here, and I want to say thanks to everyone for watching, and we'll see you all next week.
Thanks for having me. Thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
Sarah, great race.
Thank you. You too.